This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, find the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, and you can also join the Facebook group at typing in Obsessive Viewer Podcast into Facebook. Facebook groups do not have good links.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, you can find that at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer. And if you like what you hear and want to support the podcast, please head over to iTunes and leave a rating and a review. The more ratings and reviews we get, the easier it will be for people to find the show in iTunes' search results. And if you want to show your support with your wallet, you can do that by clicking the donate button on obsessiveviewer.com for a one-time donation, or by clicking the donate link in the show notes of this episode. You can also become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, where you can choose from several different reward tiers, including the popular $5 reward tier that has us that forces us to say anything that you wish. Any donations made will help pay the fees to keep the podcast running so we can continue to provide you with our weekly podcasts that kind of get released later and later in the week as my job and social life become more demanding. Anyway, so final bit of news here is, or bit of intro here in housekeeping, is that tickets are on sale for Shocktober in Irvington 3 at shocktoberinirvington.com. It's a one-night event screening of short horror films taking place on October 14th, 2016 at the Irving Theater. You'll have more information in the promo that we'll play later in this episode, but I just want to mention that as a special bonus for listeners of the podcast, you can get $1 off the price of admission when you use the promo code PODCAST1 when you buy your tickets. Tickets are only $8 and all the money gets donated straight to the Irvington Historical Society. So that is awesome and we're looking forward to it. Okay, so having said all of that, Tiny, how you doing?
I am wonderful.
Great, that's great to hear. Mm-hmm. And what, pray tell, are we going to be talking about today on the podcast?
Today we're going to be talking about some of our favorite raunchy comedies. Right. But first, news.
Oh, yes, we do have a news segment this week. We have not been trying to figure that out 3 times. But anyway... We do have news this week. We have a few things that I want to bring up for our news segment this week on the podcast. First of all is another quick plug for Shocktober in Irvington. We've collected some prizes that we're going to be giving away at Shocktober in Irvington. We have a bunch of really cool DVDs to give away. We have 2 copies of The Shining, and we have a copy of Trick or Treat, a copy of The Collector, and also a DVD of all 7 Saw movies. So those will be raffled off at the event on October 14th, and I'm really excited about it. So, our next piece of news, Tiny, are you ready for this?
I am ready.
Okay, so Bloodline was officially canceled by Netflix today.
Oh, it hurts.
Yep, they had already ordered season 3, so season 3 is going to be the final season of Bloodline, which... I can't really say that much about it because I've only seen the first season, but this is kind of a downer for me because I really liked that first season. Tiny, how do you feel about this news?
I mean, it's a bummer. I get it because, I'm not sure how popular it is. I'm not sure how it fits into the ladder, if you will, of the importance of Netflix shows.
Sure.
Maybe Daredevil's up at the top, and then whatever's at the bottom, and maybe this is one of the bottom rungs of the ladder. Could be.
Sure.
So I can't really speak to that. So it's hard to know the decision-making processes, but I know there's a lot of things that played into it. There's probably some creative issues. There's probably I know one of the things I read is that the first 2 seasons of the show were substantially cheaper because in Florida they had the whole tax break thing, where if you're filming a movie or show, whatever, there you get certain tax breaks, and apparently that ended, so that was going to substantially increase the budget for the show. So that's that's understandable, but it's just, it's the never-ending conflict between art and business.
That's true. And also I'm reading an article now, and like that, and it's all conjecture, but it's funny because that tax incentive thing is potentially resulted in Netflix even ordering 10 episodes for season 3 instead of 13.
Right.
Yeah, it's a shame, and it's funny. I read that this is only the third TV series that Netflix has canceled. Like in its entire run, there was what is that? Hemlock Grove and Lilyhammer were both canceled by Netflix, and now Bloodline. But it's funny you mentioned the totem pole of Netflix original series and the ladder of the rungs of the ladder and everything. There are I would say, that the top of it is probably House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, all the Marvel shows, and then probably closer to the bottom is stuff like Grace and Frankie and some of the other, like some of the smaller shows that weren't necessarily created by Netflix, but like they're just distributing them, so they get the moniker of Netflix original. But I feel like Bloodline was kind of somewhere in the middle there. It was very critically acclaimed from my perspective, but I still don't know how season 2 shaped up.
Right. Well, and you got to give Netflix a lot of credit because at least they didn't just completely axe the show. They're giving them 10 more episodes, and they let them know before they start filming, like, hey, these are your last episodes, do your best with them. And so
that's true.
I definitely respect that as a fan, and there's a lot of studios or networks or whatever that would not do that. And they deserve some credit for that.
Sure. And I actually don't know if they're where they are in the process of production now. So I mean, they could be filming, but
oh, really? Okay.
I don't know if they are or not. But it's a shame. It's a shame, but
I'm sticking to my gun.
Sure. Okay, so moving on to our last piece of news. Actually, we're kind of light on news this week. Is Star Trek Discovery? That was originally set to premiere January 2017, but now it's been pushed back to May, and. This is interesting to me. It's not that surprising per se, because there's really, we're almost to October now, and it's like we haven't had much of any details or any footage at all of this show going forward. So it's kind of, in a sense, I'm kind of relieved that it got pushed back for a few reasons. But Tiny, what do you think about this? Are you interested in Star Trek Discovery, and how do you feel about this recent news? Yeah,
I'm gonna watch it. I'm getting into Star Trek. I'm working my way through the original series now, and I want to watch all of it. That's a huge undertaking.
Same here.
It's going to take a while. But yeah, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to, and so I'm very interested in it. I'm glad with this decision. I think giving creative people more time to do their craft is usually a good thing. I realize sometimes it can be the sign of negative things. But I think since the show isn't even out yet, and it's like they haven't done a lot yet, I think I'm looking at it as a positive light, and I'm hoping that it's a positive thing. And also I think it's going to be good that it's a summer show. That is going to air over the summer, because I feel like the fall is just so competitive and so many shows just get lost in the shuffle.
In winter, it would technically be winter.
Right. Wait, what?
It was supposed to be out in January.
I know what I'm saying, but now it's going to be May.
Oh, okay, yeah. You said fall, like it was going to be released in fall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I did say that. I don't know why I said that.
I
don't know.
I'm just trying to cut off all of the angry emails we'll be getting.
Yeah, we will, I'm sure. But I like summer shows. People have more time. It feels like people have more time in the summer. People are looking for something new over the summer, I think. And I feel like sports kind of dominate the fall and winter now. So I don't know. I think May's a good time to release the show. And I hope it's going to be more successful ratings-wise that way.
Sports?
With a Z. SPORTZ.
Oh, like comedy sports here in Indianapolis on Mass Ave. They have a place that's like improv? Okay.
Yeah. It's where you take a thing and you put it through another thing. And there's like, it can be one person or like...
I'm not going to make that joke. Not going to make that joke. This is a family-friendly podcast.
You take some kind of ball, whether it's round or oblong-shaped, and you put it into another thing. It's usually made out of some kind of animal skin. I just keep digging a deeper hole.
You do, yeah, and I don't know how to respond to this.
And
Brian Fuller
so yeah.
is the producer. Anyway, yeah, did you have more to say on that, or did you want
No.
Okay. Cool. So anyway, Brian Fuller, he's the showrunner for this series, and I have faith in him because I really liked his work in Hannibal. And like you said, I'm also getting into Star Trek. I've watched the entire original series and also the animated series. Tiny, you can skip that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I actually found out like after I watched it that it wasn't even considered canon by Gene Roddenberry. So,
wow.
but I mean, and it's not bad. It's not bad. It was funny because when Fecus came over to record a podcast a while ago, I was in the middle of watching it, and like he just knee-jerk pointed out like the animation is exactly like the animation style of the ambiguously gay duo from SNL, those animated shorts, and like that kind of ruined the entire show for me. But anyway, so I mean, yeah, more time to work on it. Great. That's good news for me. I'm willing to wait for it, because I'm really anxious to see, new Star Trek on TV. I say that having seen maybe like a tenth of the amount of television that, Star Trek has on television, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, having said that, let's go on to the main event.
Let's do it.
Yes. This week on the podcast, we are discussing some of our favorite raunchy comedies. Our favorite RaunchComs, if you will. Please do. Anyone?
Please.
Yeah,
RaunchComs.
We want it to be a thing. Anyway, so we kind of have this concentrated list of 12 movies spanning the 1980s all the way to the 2000s, and we're just kind of going to go through them one by one. I don't know how much real insight I'm going to have on a lot of these.
Yeah.
It's just I haven't seen several of them in a while, but some of them I'm very, very much interested in. So, Tiny, do you want to kind of bring us into it with the first one?
I would love to. First of all, I think it's important to like list or define our own definitions of what a raunchy comedy is.
Yes, we definitely should do that, because I had trouble thinking of what exactly...
Yeah, well, it's super broad.
It is.
Because raunchy can mean different things to different people. Mm-hmm. And what's raunchy to one person is not raunchy to another, necessarily. Mm-hmm. For me, for some reason, I don't know why, maybe this is a little misguided, but I always associate a raunchy comedy, like there has to be like sex in it. Like it has to be about someone trying to get laid, or like this girl's super hot, or I don't know. It has to be. It's always a very shallow endeavor for the conquering nature of sex, I guess. But you know, there's plenty of like comedies out there that people would consider raunchy, where it's not really about that. Like there's not like it's not necessarily about sex. There might be some sexy stuff in it or whatever, but so it's just kind of weird. That's just the own perception that I've taken, my own perception that I've taken, that I relate to raunchy comedies. So yeah, that's kind of what I gravitated towards when I was thinking of this. Like some other lists that I found mentioned the movie like I Love You, Man, which there's some sex in there and stuff like that, but I just don't consider it that raunchy.
Me neither.
I mean, it's rated R and there's like a bunch of F-bombs and stuff like that, but like, I don't know. I feel like cursing is only raunchy if you're 10. You know what I mean? Like, if you're an adult and someone's like, oh my God, he said the F word. Oh, I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, calm down. I don't know. Again, that's just a personal opinion, but I just don't see that as a raunchy comedy.
Right. And I'll agree with you and say that dictionary.com defines raunchy as vulgar or smutty, crude, earthy, obscene, or dirty, slovenly, grubby. So, I mean, yeah, technically it doesn't necessarily need to be sexual in nature, just something vulgar and obscene and kind of, I would I would refer to them as pearl clutchers. Like
nice
movies.
I like that.
Yeah. Movies that make little old ladies clutch their pearls and say, oh my word, that man has his thing in a pie.
Nice.
It's ridiculous. Tweet us, hashtag pearl clutchers. Anyway,
yes, please do.
Right.
That's gonna, man, if that went viral, I cannot imagine the kind of tweets that would be associated with that hashtag.
Yeah.
Out of context. Oh boy.
Don't overestimate our audience.
Yeah,
we don't have. I don't think we can go viral.
That's true.
But anyway, hashtag Pearl Clutchers 2016.
Yes, go for it.
Anyway,
one of the other like requirements I was thinking of is it really almost has to be rated R.
Yeah. Oh, I agree completely.
But again, I started digging into this a little bit, and like one of the first movies that came to mind for me was like Weird Science.
Sure.
PG-13.
Really?
That movie's PG-13.
You know, it's a different time.
Yeah.
Like, there was a really great episode of Slash Filmcast where they interviewed Joseph Kahn, who directed that Power Rangers short film, Power/Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's kind of amazing because the host can barely get a word in edgewise, but he goes on several rants about how the movie industry these days is just so contingent on hitting all four quadrants. Studios are making PG-13 movies that should be rated R movies, and it's just going into this, like, he goes into a rant. I highly recommend checking it out. But anyway, it's funny because at different times, like PG-13 back in the 80s meant something completely different than PG-13 now. PG-13 now is more, they get away with more things, but as long as they don't show certain things, they get a pass.
Right.
And it's kind of, I guess, I don't know what point I'm trying to make. It's just, and in PG-13 in the 80s, it's just kind of rougher, I think.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and submitting your film for a certain rating, ratings are very subjective. It's really like a panel of people who make a decision whether or not you get the rating that you submit, and that's just so subjective in nature that it's like, you know, if the person doesn't like the movie, they're probably not going to give you the rating. And so you would think that ratings would be a very, you know, set in stone thing. Like, if you show this, it's going to get this. If you show that, you're going to get that. But it's very open to interpretation. So
right. There was a documentary called "This Film Is Not Yet Rated." Did you ever see that?
Sure did. Yeah.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
How was it? Because it is not available anywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's kind of strange.
It was surprising to me because I really didn't understand the process of how movies got rated, but they basically broke it down, and it's literally like a panel of people.
Yeah.
And I mean, they make decisions based on this and that, and like in the documentary, they broke down how there are certain things that if you submit it, like if you have this in your film and you submit it as a PG-13 movie, they're not gonna give it to you. They're going to rate it as a rated R movie. And it's really interesting because, like, one of them was, I don't mean to be vulgar, but one of them is like, if you show a person climaxing, if it's a man, you can probably get away with your PG-13 rating, but if it's a woman, you're gonna get an R rating. And it's kind of weird. It's kind of this weird misogynistic thing where it's like, we can't allow a woman to have that much pleasure on screen without it being a rated R movie.
My stars.
Yeah, exactly.
Hashtag bro clutchers.
It was such an odd exploration of that concept, and it was just interesting. It was very fascinating. I was pleased with the documentary.
Nice. And if you want to watch This Film Is Not Yet Rated, you can go over to Amazon and pay $74.99 for the DVD of it.
What?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know why. This is all conjecture, but it kind of feels like maybe this isn't, released or anything because,
Well, it's kind of interesting. It's a very anti-establishment movie.
Exactly.
The establishment's probably pissed off that it's out there, so that's probably why they're not printing it anymore, and it's hard to find.
Right. It's not available for rent on Google Play either.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm trying to look up and see what why I can't find it. But anyway, yeah, kind of strange. But anyway.
Yeah. That fell into some tangents there.
It did. So why don't you get us kicked off?
Sure.
I said like 10 minutes ago, like, hey, why don't you get us kicked off?
Yeah.
No, so why don't you get us kicked off with the first pick?
Yeah, the first one, we're going to kind of go in chronological order. RaunchComs kind of kicked off in the 80s. Pretty much. There's a couple in the 70s.
Probably.
But it really took off in the 80s. One of the most notable ones, the one that came to mind for me, was 1981's Porky's.
Gap movie.
Oh, really? Gap movie?
Well, technically not. I watched it when I was like a preteen.
Yeah.
And I barely remember it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
I'm kind of in the same boat.
Really?
Unfortunately.
Oh, this is going to be a fun conversation.
Well, the thing is, I have fond memories of it because boobs.
Sure.
But like, I saw it way too young. I saw it when I was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 maybe.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But like, I think I saw it on like Comedy Central. But then you could see it on like Showtime, and so like I saw like different edited versions of it, and but then I saw the full on rated R unedited version of it. Mm-hmm. And I mean I genuinely liked it because I thought it was, as you know, an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, I thought it was really awesome that these guys were sneaking into a girl's locker room and watching them change clothes, and that's disturbing. But you know, I was a child and a little boy. And naked girls. That was a nice thing.
Right.
Objectively, I think it's obviously a very dumb movie. But it's set in the 50s, and it's about a group of high school guys who try to get their friend laid. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, it's a classic RaunchCom equation there. And they get into some trouble with like a nightclub owner. There's a sheriff who's like a very Dukes of Hazzard kind of sheriff,
mm-hmm.
You know, kind of very, by today's standards, a very X plus Y equals Z kind of thing, and you know, you kind of know where you're headed. But at the time, I think it was a semi-original concept for a movie, and I think that's why people who came of age in the early '80s really latched onto the movie, and it became a cult classic for that reason. I really need to see it again, and you know. Consume it as an adult. It's been so long since I've seen it.
Yeah, and I can't really say much about it either because I just have barely any memory of it. I remember seeing the kind of iconic scene, with the glory hole apparently.
Right.
But I don't really remember much about it. But
yeah.
But it was what's the word I'm looking for? It was like I guess, groundbreaking sort of movie.
But I mean, when I did research for this topic, several different places around the internet, this was at the top of a lot of lists.
Yeah.
Near the top of a lot of lists. So.
Right. And even though we can't really speak that much about it, we can't really talk about raunchy comedies without bringing it up. So, you know.
Right.
So, let's see. And as far as 70s, real quick, and we've already talked about this movie on the podcast before, but Animal House is up there too.
That definitely is, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, next up is Fast Times at Ridgemont High from 1982, which I didn't really. Yeah, I mean it was a bit raunchy. Yeah, I can definitely see that. But this movie is kind of close to me, like a little near and dear to my heart, because it's a lot more endearing than what the subject would have it be regarded as. Mm-hmm. It's more about kind of a slice of life, like teen lives in this town, more so than anything. But there is some really funny gags, like, I mean, Phoebe Cates in the pool and Judge Reinhold roughing up a suspect to her is really an iconic sequence and everything, and it's really funny. I don't know, I love this movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's really good.
Yeah, and the movie is, I think movies like Animal House and Porky's came out, and then I think Fast Times at Ridgemont High was like the mainstream movie that really took off and became kind of a household name, if you will, which is kind of antithetical to the whole concept of a RaunchCom.
Sure.
But still, like, I think you know what I mean. It just became mainstream. And really, a lot of these movies are like kind of like fantasy service. I mean, it's like they're fantastical. You know, it's Phoebe Cates coming out of the pool and just ripping her top off. That is a fantasy. That doesn't really happen. You know what I mean? It's just
right.
And I think that's why a lot of teenage dudes and dudes in their 20s really latched onto this movie and love this movie, is because that is a literal fantasy that you're watching. And it's like, that's why this movie and a lot of these other movies are popular, is because you're living a fantasy to an extent.
Right. And what I like about it also is that what Cameron Crowe does with it is that he kind of finds a middle ground with it, because we do have that raunchy aspect to it, but it's also, there's some really good stuff about sex and coming of age in it. Like Jennifer Jason Leigh's arc in it is really, I mean, really pretty serious.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not played for laughs or anything. It's just a straight drama. And it's the movie has a good middle ground between the two, the more serious and the more silly aspects of sex and teen angst and teen coming of age. No pun intended. So it kind of finds a nice balance between those. And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the movie.
I agree. Yeah, I didn't mean to remove all philosophy or, like, you know, important things that the movie actually did tackle. I'm just saying
Phoebe Cates topless.
Right. I mean, I think that's why it's popular. I'll put it that way.
That's kind of the takeaway from not the takeaway from it. It's kind of what pop culture has reduced Fast Times at Ridgemont High down to.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and I remember when I first saw it, I didn't really get it. I didn't really get the appeal of the movie because I knew about that sequence, and I thought that was indicative of what the entire movie was. But it's really not. It's a much more grounded and much more serious movie than what pop culture would have you think.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Up next is 1984's Revenge of the Nerds.
Yes.
This is another one that automatically came to mind for me. And I think it's kind of a good thing that for me, a lot of these movies, my experiences with them happened when I was younger. Because I mean, they're intrinsically childish, because you're talking about silly, frivolous things, and it's all about objectifying women, and you know. But I think if I had seen a lot of these movies as an adult, I would have just passed them off completely. And Revenge of the Nerds is definitely that for me, because I watched this a ton as a kid, and I just thought it was funny, and you know, it's like, again, it's kind of intrinsically childish and goofy and everything. Not to say that the movie doesn't offer anything. For those who don't know, Revenge of the Nerds is about a group of nerds at a college campus who are, they become outcasts on campus because they can't join any kind of fraternity or anything like that, so they decide to start their own. And they kind of find their way into this already established fraternity where it's like they don't discriminate for any reason. So that's how the nerds are able to join a fraternity. You've seen the movie, you know what it's about. This movie is, I think, popular, and it's recognized in this subgenre because it kind of established the dynamic of like jocks versus nerds. And I feel like earlier movies like Animal House and Porky's to an extent, and some of these other movies, it didn't really have that aspect to it. I feel like the kind of jockey guys and the nerdy guys weren't necessarily best buddies, but they like existed. You know, there's always bullying and stuff like that, but it wasn't the focal point of the conflict or anything. And this movie just really focused on that. And like I said, it's grounds for comedy. You know, there's lots of solid comedy in this movie. Like the guy named Barf. Is that his name? Barf?
That sounds right, I think.
Something like that.
We talked about Revenge of the Nerds back in OV101, our college movies episode, and
Booger. His name's Booger.
Nice.
So basically the same thing.
Nice, right? And like I remember in that episode, I just not really that crazy about Revenge of the Nerds. I think that's a symptom of me watching it at too old an age.
Yeah.
Because it just was too silly and over the top for me. I haven't revisited it since, but I haven't really had a desire to either.
Yeah, and I mean the movie culminates with basically a talent show. And
right.
The nerds sing a stupid ass song, and like they won the talent show.
Mm-hmm.
And there's what you could essentially consider a rape in the movie. Basically, one of the nerds pretends to be someone else at a costume party.
That's right.
In order to have sex with a girl, and that happens, and it works out because she just so happens to be into it, and she doesn't freak out that some dude she didn't know just had sex with her. It's kind of hard to explain unless you see the movie, but you know, in a perfect world, or not in a perfect world, but in the fantasy world, please cut that out. In the fantasy world of this nerd's mind, this is how it's supposed to work out, and it works out in the right way. But if you put it into a different context, he raped her, and it's kind of disturbing. As a kid, I didn't get that, but you know, like thinking about it as an adult, I'm like, that's messed up.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie has its flaws and it has its ups and downs, and it's really goofy, and I agree with you, it's over the top. But it's a popular movie, and I think with a certain audience, it really resonates.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm likely not going to revisit it anytime soon.
It does have a positive message of like inclusiveness. You know, don't discriminate against people and all that stuff. But
sure, yeah.
Treat everyone with respect and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, it's got a guy named Booger in it. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up is 1985's Weird Science. This is a movie that I haven't seen since 2013 when I posted on the blog, when I actually posted written reviews, when I posted written reviews on the website. I really need to get back into that. It was in May of 2013. So
wow.
Yeah, so Tiny, do you want to take the reins on this one real quick?
Sure. I think the last time I saw it was probably like May of 1998. No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but this is another one of those movies I watched a lot. This is 1985's Weird Science. I brought it up in the intro because it is interesting that it's PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie is literally pure fantasy to the point where you're talking about science fiction. It's like, it's so fantastical that it's sci-fi. They had to use, fake science to make it, to make the movie work. If you don't know, Weird Science is about two nerds who literally create a human woman in a lab. And it's like they use a computer to create a person, which is really silly and obviously impossible. But again, it taps into fantasy because, you know, if you can fantasize, you can literally make any woman have any characteristic or personality that you want. That's literally a fantasy. So it's very fantastical and kind of hard to wrap your head around in that respect, but you know, it's also a great scenario for comedy. This has Anthony Michael Hall in it, who I think he was a great child actor, essentially teen actor. I'm a fan of his work. I mean, you know, Breakfast Club's a great movie, and 16 Candles. I mean, he's a great actor. Yeah. But then his friend in the movie, Ian Mitchell Smith, I didn't know his name. His voice, it's like a frog being tortured, or it's like a frog's going through puberty. That's what his voice sounds like. And that's a terrible thing to focus on because you know, he does a good job in the movie, but I remember even as a kid I was like, why is his voice so annoying? And then the absolutely stunning and iconic Kelly LeBrock as Lisa, the woman they create. It's an iconic movie in my mind for that reason. Just the I don't know. I think the fantasy coming to fruition, and then the two guys realizing that, you know, there's a lot more than just coming up with the cup size of a woman's breast. There's a lot more to that than, you know, you need a lot more than that in your relationships. And, you know, they both end up finding real women that they love, and they fall in love with them. And it has an interest. I don't know about interesting, but has a good moral twist in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a positive movie for that. And it's a relatively funny movie. It is a John Hughes movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, check his resume. He was an incredible storyteller and filmmaker. So I think this is this is where the genre started to like shift a little bit, in my opinion, towards more moral and less just about selfishness. I think it's a little bit more of a grounded movie, despite the fact that it's super science fiction-y and fantasy-ish. So
right. So when I saw it back in 2013, this was the first time I'd ever seen it, and I was kind of disappointed in it, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. Looking back on it, I think at the time it was because I was writing a review of basically a retrospective on John Hughes, just written reviews, and the posts are awful. It's 3 years ago when I first started out the blog and everything. I didn't know what I was doing, but anyway, I just remember that I was just let down because at the time I had watched Breakfast Club and 16 Candles, and those are two like really incredible movies, and going from that to this really out there sci-fi comedy, teen comedy thing was kind of off-putting to me, and there were some interesting aspects to it. I liked the premise a lot, and I thought that it went in some interesting areas and everything, but like there's a scene with Anthony Michael Hall where he gets drunk and he is doing this really obnoxious imitation of something like a trumpet player or something.
It's a little racist. I don't know if I guess it would be kind of racist. It's a little just annoying to me. Yeah.
It was really just, it got under my skin so much. And then there's an inclusion of kind of this Mad Max style biker gang.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And that, like, by that point I was like just kind of checked out, and I was just like, this went off the rails, and I was not a fan of it. But for the premise itself, I think that it could have been a really strong movie. But it just didn't really work for me.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And again, I am mentioning all these movies from the perspective of like an 11-year-old or 12-year-old for the most part. I think I saw Weird Science when I was in high school last, probably.
Nice.
Yeah. What do you got next, Maddie?
All right. So the next one on the list is a movie that I'm particularly fond of. This was kind of a formative movie for my teen years. American Pie.
Nice.
From 1999. And I kind of want to lump in at least the first sequel in it as well, because I was a big fan of American Pie 2. I was a big fan of American Pie also. Stupid. Anyway, don't laugh at that. No, I was a huge fan of American Pie and American Pie 2, and this was kind of the jumping off point, or it was kind of the you could probably say it was kind of the start of a trend of R-rated comedies, particularly R-rated like teen comedies of the time.
Oh yeah.
And it kind of brought about this kind of renaissance of teen comedies. And for my money, I always say this, and I always think that it's apt, really, but I feel like oh wow. The Shannon Elizabeth webcam scene is like our generation's Phoebe Cates getting out of the pool in Fast Times.
Oh yeah.
It's like, it's so iconic, and so what people our age when we saw it watched it for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's, and it's funny because it exists in this weird state between like when the internet was like first kind of like really like, oh, it's not just a thing, it's like it's a thing that we're gonna live with forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's before like the internet became like an everyday thing, at least from my perspective, at least. It's just like this weird, like, can they really just watch a live feed of something? But yeah, it's funny. I kind of wonder what Jason Biggs' character's parents' dial-up bill was or whatever. But anyway, But yeah, and the movie itself is endearing as well, because it's not just about these 4 high school guys trying to get laid before prom. It's I mean, well, that is what it's about, but it has some endearing qualities, like Chris Klein and Mina Suvari. They like their arc is really endearing and very charming. And yeah, I really, really like this movie. I haven't seen it for a while, but I know it like the back of my hand, and that's not supposed to be a masturbation joke. But this movie also has a special place in my heart because it's where I learned what lacrosse is.
Because you're such a big lacrosse fan.
I am, yeah. But Tiny, what'd you think of American Pie? I feel like this was a movie that I pushed on you pretty hard.
Yeah, it is. No, I wish I revered it as much as most of the people of our generation do. Mm-hmm. It's not that I don't like the movie. It's funny as hell, and I think it's a great movie. There's just people who had defined part of their teen years and the years where they came of age, like Matt is raising his hand right now. And for whatever reason, it's just not that for me.
Sure.
It should be. I realize it should be. Part of it is that this movie came out in 1999. I was 12. That's
funny because I was too.
I know. But at the time, my parents, they weren't quite letting me watch rated R movies yet. Mm-hmm. And I think I didn't see this till 2001 or 2002.
Okay.
So it took me a while to see the movie, in general. So that was part of it. I kind of missed the curve on it. That's part of it.
Sure.
I missed it when it was at its peak of popularity. Mm-hmm. But I agree with what you said, though. I think it did usher in this whole, it ushered in a new genre or a new era of these kinds of comedies. And I feel like over the last 3 to 5 years, it's started to wane again, and it's not as popular.
Somewhat. At least it's not so focused on teens anymore.
That's true, yeah.
It's now 20-somethings or 30-somethings. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of movies like Neighbors and,
right.
I guess that's still somewhat teens. Yeah. As well, but there's an older audience for it. It's stuff like 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, and mm-hmm. I Love You Man.
True.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you notice, we jumped from Weird Science. We're going chronologically here, by release date. Weird Science 1985, American Pie 1999. I can't think of many movies like this from the 90s. I feel like
I can't either.
I feel like the genre really established in the 80s, and then in the 90s it didn't disappear, but it was just we didn't have tentpole movies like Revenge of the Nerds or American Pie in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Obviously, American Pie is 1999, but 1999 was kind of right. 2000 light. So I don't know what it was about the 90s, but maybe it's just that the genre itself is going to go through roller coasters and highs and lows, and in the 90s it was a low point.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny because this is an anecdote. I don't remember if I've ever mentioned it on the podcast, but 184 episodes, it bound to repeat some things.
Yeah.
But so one of my, I guess, fondest memories, or one of the funniest, I don't know, one of the instances in my life where I laughed pretty hard was due to, and that's a weird way to bring it up, but anyway, American Pie. I saw it. I kind of want to say that I may have seen it in the theater.
Wow.
I think Tiny, do you remember the little dollar theater in the shopping center here in Speedway? Shout out Speedway. But they had this little cheap $1 movie theater that was really gross, and it's not there anymore. I really wish that I don't know. That's another tangent, but
yeah.
Anyway, they didn't care, or I snuck into the movie. I don't know how it happened, but I think I saw it at that theater, and then I remember that day, the next Monday at school in health class. I was in 8th grade or 7th grade, and I remember the next day we're in health class. I'm sitting there just minding my own business, and then I suddenly realized, like, this was days later, I realized in my brain the connection, like, I finally got the punchline to the joke where Thomas Ian Nicholas is going down on Tara Reid, and her father goes up to the door, and she starts, like, to have her come down for dinner, and she starts yelling, I'm coming, I'm coming.
Right.
Like, it took me several days after seeing it and to be in the middle of health class until I realized, like, oh, she didn't hear him coming up. She was saying something else. And it was such a dumb moment on my part, but it was really funny.
Did you burst into laughter in health class?
I did.
Like, you look like an insane person?
I did. And I think I told, like, someone, I can't remember who I told, but I was like, they were like, what are you laughing at? I was like, well, there's a scene where this guy was the tongue tornado, and
that is hilarious.
Yeah, I was a very awkward kid.
Oh boy.
But
we're awkward?
That's a good point. So anyway, and I love the sequel too. American Wedding and American Reunion, I don't care as much about, but American Pie 2 was really good, and I liked it, and I like American Pie, and we can move on to the next one.
Totally. Yeah. 2004, Harold and Kumar go to White Castle, and this movie has the added subgenre of, like, stoner movie. Obviously, I mean, it's obviously, I think that's actually, like, the primary subgenre you can squeeze it into, but it works on both levels. Raunchy comedy, because smoking weed is raunchy.
Right.
So, I mean, this movie, I think, was very culturally prevalent, and, like, this was one of those movies that got quoted a lot by people. I kind of missed the curve on this one a little bit. I don't know why. I don't think I saw it till like 2005.
Oh,
2006.
that sucks.
That's going to be a trend throughout this back half of our list. I don't know why. I just didn't seek these movies out. But Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle it was like an instant classic, pretty much. And I think it was very clever in that they casted two unknown people in John Cho and Cal Penn. That's his name, right?
Yeah.
Okay. He hasn't done a lot lately. So that was clever, and then the casting of Neil Patrick Harris as a caricature of himself was brilliant. And the story behind it's also very funny. Google it. They just picked a random celebrity, put him into the script, and I guess he just kind of heard about it and was like, I'll do it. Nice. As far as I may be remembering details of it incorrectly, but I think that's kind of the gist of it. That's just a hilarious story. I love that. But John Cho and Cal Penn just had such fantastic chemistry. It felt like they've been friends for 10 years, before they even shot the movie. It's funny that they're kind of each actor is playing kind of the opposite of their real life personalities.
Right.
Like Cal Penn in real life is actually a relatively serious guy, and like he worked in the White House for a while and stuff like that. But John Cho is actually the big jokester, goofy guy who makes dick and fart jokes, but he's playing the straighter, square guy, and I think that's always fun. I think that's a good way to get actors to work with each other and bounce ideas off each other, and
definitely.
I think that's a fun coincidence, and it just worked incredibly well in the movie. It's also the movie's so dumb that it's funny. It's like it's two high guys trying to go to White Castle.
Yeah,
like why that should not be a movie. It's another one. It's not fantasy, but it's one of those things where like this doesn't happen really.
Right.
Like people who are high that want to go get White Castle, they get in their car and they go to White Castle at 2:00 in the morning, and then they fall asleep when they get home. That's the real life Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. And it's just that's what makes it so funny is that all the things they get into are so ridiculous that you have to laugh.
Right.
Yeah.
This movie, I remember I saw it in the theater, and like, okay, this may turn into a trend with me. So, one of the funniest things I've seen, like one of the hardest times I've ever laughed in the movie theater, is at the line where Cal Penn or Harold and Kumar are at the hospital, and Kumar's father is hassling him about his med school stuff and everything. And then
I know where you're going.
it's such a beautifully constructed punchline because Calpen's like, Dad, come on. And then and then the dad just says, Daddy's not coming on anything.
I'm not going to come on anything.
It's so funny.
That is classic.
And it is so juvenile, and it's just such a wonderful joke. I love it so much.
Yes, it is.
I distinctly remember driving home from the theater with I think my sister and a couple of our friends went, and I distinctly remember, I think that's who, I don't know, I was in the car with some other people, and I distinctly remember laughing until my face was beet red, tears were streaming down my face.
Yes. Just
because that joke alone was the funniest thing I heard. And it's so ridiculous, but that and this movie has so much just goofy stuff in it. It's kind of a stoner comedy that almost gets into the kind of weird fantasy out there stuff that Dude, Where's My Card went to, which is a movie I should probably revisit.
They do hang glide and ride a cheetah.
That's true. But it's still pretty accessible in that respect. And it doesn't stray too far off the beaten path with that.
Right.
So yeah, I really love the movie. The sequel I thought was solid.
Agreed.
And then the Christmas movie, I barely remember.
I still haven't watched it.
Yeah, it's okay. There are a couple funny bits, there's a funny moment where there's a funny nod to Calpen in it, because they're something they say something about working at the White House or whatever, and then Kumar's like, yeah, do you think anyone would believe me working at the White House or something? It's kind of funny, tongue in cheek thing, but for the most part, it wasn't that memorable. Although the inclusion of Neil Patrick Harris in it, they include him and his husband in it, and it's they incorporate him coming out into the movie, and it's he's talking about how he just secretly came out so that he can get more tail or something.
Gotcha.
I don't know. It was really funny, but or it was vague. It was relatively funny.
Gotcha.
So yeah. So, are you ready for the next one?
Absolutely.
All right. So the next one is Eurotrip, and it's funny. This is from 2004, and it's funny because Eurotrip is kind of an underrated comedy movie from my perspective. It's kind of the title alone kind of seems like a like a kind of second-rate road trip type of movie.
Yeah.
But it's pretty funny. There's stuff about it I haven't seen in a while, but there's stuff about it that I really enjoy. They play with a lot of it's a very conventional raunchy comedy, in that they have the kind of out there crazy guy, they have the kind of straight-laced anxiety-ridden guy, they have the kind of nerdy or kind of I don't know if I'd say nerdy, but
bookish.
Bookish reserved guy. They've got the heartthrob, the kind of girl next door girl, and they have a lot of stuff, but it plays with some really funny stuff within those conventions. The outcome of two characters who happen to be related and happen to accidentally make out, the outcome of that, and it's in the trailer, the crazy guy just really, really hitting it home that they made out, is just so funny to me. And it's a great throw it on in the background kind of comedy. That doesn't really demand too much from you as an audience member.
True. I again kind of missed the boat on this one. I didn't see it till college, late college. I thought it was okay. I think it's a little overrated, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think the whole Scotty doesn't know thing is pretty funny.
Sure, yeah.
Again, the story behind it is funny as well. How the hell is Matt Damon in this movie? But yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was the over the top stuff. I didn't think was was crazy enough to be that funny. I don't know, like the whole Vatican thing.
Oh yeah,
it's like just so dumb. Like,
that kind of overstayed its welcome just a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, I did appreciate the characters in it. I think the main kid, who never really did much else, I don't think.
Yeah, what was his name?
I wasn't crazy about him. He was okay. But I like Michelle Trachtenberg and the crazy guy. I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember he was in. Jacob Pitts was the crazy guy. He was in at least the first several episodes of Justified. I didn't get much farther than that.
Yeah, and he was in the Pacific as well.
Oh yeah,
he's done some good stuff. I like him. I could see him going places. When I saw Eurotrip, I thought he had a lot of potential. So, but yeah, I thought it was an okay movie.
Okay, the guy that played the lead has been quite a few things since then, but nothing like mainstream or anything.
Gotcha.
He was in a movie called Waiting for Forever that you may have seen the cover art on Netflix when you're scrolling through. His name is Scott Mechlowitz.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's see. What is the next one? Do you want me to bring it up, or is it your turn?
I can bring it up.
Okay, cool.
2006's Grandma's Boy. This movie is definitively cult classic. I mean, it had a very poor theatrical run. Didn't do very well, but then it really took off with DVD sales and just it developed a cult.
I wonder if did it even have a theatrical release?
I think it did, but it was like really bad. It only had like maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Jeez.
Maybe I don't remember in theaters. So
me neither.
We'll see. We can look it up. But yeah, this movie, it's funny despite the people involved. We've ripped on Adam Sandler and company quite a bit. Reference our Summer of Sandler episodes or don't. And so we have a lot of bad things to say about that whole group and what they do. But I think this movie stands out. I feel like the movie was written by and stars Adam Covert, yeah. He's in every Adam Sandler movie. And he just got to make his own movie this time. And I think because of that, he really just went for it and really going for it made a pretty unique movie. The movie's about like video game testers, which is a popular thing. Video games are more popular than they've ever been. And so I think that aspect really helped the movie out. And at the time, I was really into video games, and so I liked it for that reason. But the movie's also very endearing. You know, you got a guy who's kind of an underachiever, and the guy's really, and he's like an underachiever, and he's at the same time he's very talented, and it has this whole age gap thing where he's like in his mid-30s, and everyone he works with is like 22.
Gray beard,
yeah,
or gray pube,
gray bush.
Gray bush. There you go.
Gray bush, yeah.
Not gray beard. Yeah.
Linda Cardellini was really charming and adorable in the movie. There's just a lot of fun things. Nick Swartzen was
scene stealer.
He was, absolutely. Yeah. I think he's gotten very weird, and I'm not crazy about a lot of the stuff he's done since.
Yeah.
But I thought he was perfect in this movie. I really loved him. And the senior citizen cast, the older ladies who were cast in the movie, were fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't recall their names off the top of my head.
Doris Roberts was the titular grandmother, wasn't she?
Yeah, that was Grandma.
Yeah, and she was great.
She was fantastic. And the mom from, what's it called? Partridge Family.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. She was one of the other old ladies, one of her roommates. But yeah, everybody was just really charming in this movie, and it was really fun.
Yeah, I agree. This is a weird movie because so its release date was January 6th, 2006. Between like 2007 or 2008 and like 2010 or 11, I just randomly, completely coincidentally happened to watch this movie on like the week of January 6th. Each year, just completely by happenstance.
That's goofy.
It was weird, but for as much as we've ripped on Happy Madison Productions, was it Shirley Jones that you were thinking of, by the way?
Yes,
sure.
She's the one who's slept with everyone.
Yeah, I think so.
The real promiscuous one.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot to like in this movie, and I don't think I'll ever like Peter Dante. I don't think I ever will.
Yeah.
He's such a weird. I just don't like him. But for every Peter Dante, there's a Joel David Moore.
Yeah.
In it, and there's something kind of, I guess, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say charming, but there's something likable about Alan Covert's persona in the movie, which is a weird thing to admit because I don't find him very appealing in general.
Yeah.
At all. And for the record, this movie was, I just had it up, but I don't have it anymore, but this movie was in, I think, 3,000 screens. Wow. Opening weekend made $3 million.
Oh, boy.
Total gross at the end was $6 million.
Oh, boy.
So it was pretty rough, but
I think DVD sales were really good for it, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This definitely had a life after. Like it found a cult following, as we said.
Yeah.
And it's a good movie. I mean, it's fun to watch. And it's got its share of raunch.
Yes.
Oh, to follow the pattern, the scene where Alan Covert at the beginning is staying over at Nick Swartzen's house, and he is in the bathroom and he is masturbating to a doll, and then accidentally releases on Nick Swartzen's mother.
Yes.
It's just, that is a really funny scene.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, and I don't know why this keeps happening to me. I really don't.
Oh, boy.
But anyway, yeah, I really like Grandma's Boy. I own it proudly. And also, if I'm not mistaken, I think that they were supposed to make the game that was going to be in the movie.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It was like going to be like made into an actual video game for like Xbox, but I don't know if it ever happened.
Yeah, I can't remember. So,
okay, so I'll go ahead and bring us into our next one. In 2007, this movie came out, Superbad, and this movie freaking, like, it might be one of my favorite comedies of just all time.
Oh yeah.
In general, it's so good,
Yes.
so ridiculously good. And the cast is amazing. It used Michael Cera shortly after Arrested Development was canceled, and it used him in a way that it used his kind of shtick and put it into a raunchy teen comedy, and he fit really well there. And opposite Jonah Hill was just really good and satisfying pairing there, because like the character of Seth in the movie is so, he's like Cartman. He's like a live action Cartman. He's very vulgar and everything. It's just really fun to watch that dynamic play out. And I'm an unabashed fan of the one night movie, like one night party movie, one night like movie. And this is a really great representation of that. Tiny, how does Superbad hold up for you?
I agree. It's pretty much the same as you. It's a top 10, maybe even top 5 comedy of all time.
Nice.
My fiance and I just stumbled across this on like Stars, like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. And we just watched the whole thing because it's
nice.
I forgot how absolutely hilarious it is. There was a time when this came out in 2007 and 2008 where I probably watched the movie 8 to 12 times in that span, in a year, year and a half. I mean, it was just part of my life, basically. And then I kind of put it on the shelf, and I haven't really watched it that much since then. But it's one of those movies that will forever be quoted by our generation. Like, people are always gonna know what McLovin is, and all the various quotes from this movie. It holds up incredibly well, which really blows me away because I saw this movie, in 2007. We were 20 years old. And 10 years later, I still laugh just as hard as I did when I was 20. And laugh you will. This movie is just, I think it's like 90 minutes. You laugh 90 times in this movie. It's just crazy how Mike created up the term, I think he did anyways, he created the term joke density.
I don't know if he necessarily created it, but
no,
yeah.
He created it.
Mike is our podcast host who's on sabbatical.
I'm in the process of patenting it, copywriting it. No, but Mike made that a popular phrase in this podcast. This is a ridiculously dense movie as far as jokes go. Impressively dense. It's just a fantastic movie. I love it.
I agree completely. And what I love about it, and I think I may have mentioned this on the One Night Party Movies episode, but what I love about it is how kind of diverse it is. It's a teen comedy, but like there are certain aspects to it that are there's like a few tiers to, there are a few levels to it. So we've got the teen party aspect of it, that these teens are having a house party and the main characters are trying to get back to it. In doing that, they stumble into what is essentially a mid-20s house party. And that's a completely different environment and a very different energy, and they're experiencing that. And then they are also dealing with like there's a scene in a bar where, like, you know, kind of older people in maybe their 30s or what have you are there, and they're kind of seeing, like, they're seeing a timeline or a chronology of debauchery and of party atmospheres and drinking and everything in this one night. And I just think that level of, not necessarily detail, but that aspect to it, where they have very different, vastly different environments and playgrounds in which to have the characters interact with other situations and things, makes it such a fresh and consistently funny and surprising movie. And I really appreciate it for that aspect of it. And I don't know if that was intentional on their part when Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg wrote it, but I'm sure that it was. But it's really, I don't know, it's really quite good.
It is.
I love it. And yeah. And again, one of the funniest things about this movie for me was McLovin, you know, I will say the sex scenes at the end. Really it's Michael Cera, his awkwardness when he's with the girl, and then McLovin's proclamation that he's in.
Yeah.
It's so funny to me.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, this movie holds up incredibly well, and I really love it, and it's definitely one of the top tier comedies for my liking.
Agreed.
Yep. So let's see. Tiny, do you want to bring us into the next one?
Yeah, also from 2007, Knocked Up. Also Seth Rogen vehicle, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of when Judd Apatow and the whole Apatow community was kind of at its peak, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that they're irrelevant now, but I think, again, the public opinion regarding that whole group has waned just a little bit.
Yeah.
Or they're just not quite as popular on top of the mountain like they used to be.
Yeah, if I could interject real quick, there's a lot less fanfare for a Judd Apatow movie these days. Like,
Mm-hmm.
This is 40 and Trainwreck didn't really have the fervor for it that like 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up seem to have.
Yeah.
That's not to say that people didn't go see them, but like people were attracted to Trainwreck and attached to Trainwreck and fans of Trainwreck, I think, more because it was an Amy Schumer vehicle than because it was a Judd Apatow joint.
Agreed.
So anyway, continue.
Yeah, Superbad was kind of part of a brand at the time, almost,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. And it was hugely popular. This movie made tons of money. Everybody saw it, quoted up and down. It had two huge stars at the time in Seth Rogen and, for whatever reason, Katherine Heigl,
Right.
Who has since fallen from grace pretty hard.
She has, yeah.
Yeah. So Knocked Up was just a really popular movie, and I think it's interesting because Superbad and Knocked Up came out in the same year. and they're both goofy comedies, raunchy comedies. And Superbad, it's interesting because it's about, teenagers in that coming of age moment where they're going off into adulthood and, the precipice of that life-changing event.
Mm-hmm.
And then Superbad is also about the precipice of a life-changing event, but it's about becoming a father and like really becoming an adult and like, embracing responsibility and stuff like that. And it's funny that I think the same generation of people, being us and people, a little bit older than us, and a little bit younger than us, latched onto both of these movies and really loved both of these movies. It's kind of a funny thing, or like a goofy coincidence, if you will, that both these movies came out when they did,
right?
And were both as popular as they were. But Knocked Up it's a goofy, raunchy comedy, but we've talked about how a lot of these movies have such an endearing quality to them.
Yeah.
And this movie really harkens to that. I love the change that Seth Rogen's character goes through. Where he's such a dumbass and just like a stoner and he's unemployed and he's basically a loser. And how this life-changing event really brings him out of his shell and kind of inspires him to be a man. I think that's a very endearing story, and I really like that part of the movie. I think a lot of people love this movie, and it's popular because it's funny and there's tons of jokes. The cast is ridiculously good. So I think there's multiple things to latch onto with this movie. It's got layers, and it's not a one note movie about a dude trying to get laid. It's just so much more than that, and I really respect the movie for that.
Me too, and I really liked it for what it is, essentially, a lot of what you said, and it's about this guy kind of realizing what he needs to do to become a more put together man. And kind of, because at the beginning he's just kind of a man-child. And I love that they have the whole running gag of them essentially trying to create a website that caters to people looking for nudity in movies. And then they actually call out the fact that Mr. Skin exists. And
right.
They just look, because that is such a, it's so truthful to that character type that they would put that much effort and that much energy into something without researching whether it exists in a better form.
Yeah.
So it's really great. And I say that after having us do 184 episodes of a podcast that in a saturated genre of podcasts.
Yeah.
Movie and TV shows. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, I love that aspect of it. I like the inclusion of, you get Paul Rudd and Judd Apatow's wife. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but, their arc in the movie and how Seth Rogen's character kind of influences Paul Rudd or kind of brings Paul Rudd out of his shell a little bit, in the movie. And it's kind of a shame that This Is 40 didn't really live up to my expectations personally, but I kind of like that inclusion in the closed circle that is Knocked Up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're kind of opposites. Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen, they're opposite, developmentally.
Right.
I don't know if that's the right word, but
sure. And Paul Rudd is kind of a stuffy guy who Seth Rogen, from my memory at least, kind of brings him out of his shell and lets him cut loose. And I kind of like that aspect of it because there's such a trope. Well, there's such a trope in movies, in TV, that I don't, like, I have no frame of reference for or whatever, but there's the, stuffy married guy who's kind of socially neutered from everything. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's just kind of a weird archetype that it's kind of like the, like you see in a lot of sitcoms that you would never really think, or a lot of sitcoms that I never watched because they kind of seemed so rote and whatever. It's just kind of like supplicant husband kind of thing.
Right. I know what you mean.
Yeah. And it's just like, I like that they play with that in a way that shows that, it's not the butt of the joke isn't him being, just this kind of downtrodden husband character who doesn't have his own personality, which I think that's part of the reason why I didn't like This Is 40, because it was more conventional in that respect. Because our entry point to it is Seth Rogen influencing Paul Rudd and getting him out of his shell. So that's a long tangent for a small subplot of the movie. But the actual bigger plot of Seth Rogen becoming more of an adult throughout the movie, it's satisfying because it's not an easy road. There is still, like, he's not a very likable character throughout the movie. Like, there's the scene where, like at several points in the movie, he is not taking the responsibility of what is going on or the severity of what's going on to heart until late in the movie. Like, there's a scene where they're driving to the doctor and he basically like he verbally accosts her and like they get into this huge argument and then and it's not like a thing that's easily reconciled in the movie. Like it's so authentic that he doesn't know how to react or behave in this situation because that's not something the character would know to do or know how to handle. Mm-hmm. And it feels really authentic in that respect. And I really like it.
I agree.
Yeah. And also we're talking about raunchy comedy. So, the sex scene is cool.
Yeah. I think the whole scene or the time where the whole group goes out to like get laid, like they go out to the club, like, and that's where he ends up meeting Katherine Heigl and stuff like that.
Right.
That whole thing is just
so great.
So much brilliance. They're just randomly talking about the movie Munich. Oh my god!
Talking about how they'll there's a line I think Seth Rogen says like, if any of us get laid tonight, it's because of Eric Bana in Munich. I'm like, that is so great.
I love that line. That's
Me
so
too.
Great.
And it's not like Munich isn't like this that as a reference point isn't that like culturally relevant.
Right,
like,
right.
I mean, Munich is a great movie.
Oh, I love Munich, yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. But it's like, it's not really in the cultural consciousness, and just for them to do that. And then also all the gags that Martin Starr for the beard. Like,
yeah.
Like I think Jonah Hill calling him, Scorsese on coke.
Yeah.
So funny.
The Unabomber.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that overstayed its welcome a little bit.
Maybe a little bit, sure.
To use your phrase, which I think is a good way to put it. Mm-hmm. I think it overstayed its welcome a little bit, but still pretty damn funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Nice.
Yep. How do you think it stacks up against 40-Year-Old Virgin?
I'm going to say 40-Year-Old Virgin's superior.
Same here.
I think it had to prove itself, which made it a little more endearing and a little more original, I guess. I'm not sure how to put it, but
40-Year-Old Virgin or Knocked Up?
A 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Okay.
I feel like Knocked Up was capitalizing on the popularity of the Apatow brand at the time.
I'll agree with that, yeah.
Not to say that I don't think it's a cash grab movie or like,
sure,
well, let's just make this movie because we're really popular right now. But I think part of its success can be granted to the popularity of the Apatow brand at the time.
Yeah, definitely. So. And if you have the DVD, I highly recommend checking out the special features on it. There's this great, like, Judd Apatow, at least he used to do this. I don't know if he doesn't anymore, but on his DVDs, he would have like these special features that are like specifically filmed for the DVDs. Like it's like this fake behind the scenes thing that's like, Seth Rogen wasn't our first choice for the lead actor, so we actually auditioned a lot of different characters or a lot of different actors, and like they filmed these like sketches and stuff that are like these other actors in the role, and it's so funny. It's so funny because like there's one where Justin Long is like, they preface it by saying like Justin Long was really capitalizing on his indie drama cred. And it's like these are just depictions of scenes that are them sabotaging it. And it's hard to explain, but it's really funny the way that they put these together. I remember James Franco's bit was really funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to, I might cut it and put it into this episode if I can find it on YouTube, but it's really funny.
All right, why don't I come here and stand around so Kirsten can do her monologue and I can just stand here and look great.
She's on Saturday Night Live.
I mean, I wait around for the geeks to do their shit the whole time, and I come on and you don't let me do James, why don't you come do my new movie? I'm a big f***ing director, and I'll let you do what you want. Oh, Kirsten's here. I gotta come on and drag her off? The f*** is this?
I don't understand. So you're still mad about Freaks and Geeks?
Yes!
Let me ask you a question. So you've done 3 Spider-Man movies, and you're mad about our f***ing show that got canceled after 12 episodes? Like, that's still in your f***ing head?
Yes!
You can't get over
I had
that?
good on that f***ing
Half
show.
of those f***ing kids aren't working. They're on drugs. You're the only f***ing one working.
Why do you think? Because I got the f***ing shit, and you never let me show it. You never let me
Well, you got a job after the show. Did you get a job? They didn't get a f***ing job. It took me 6 years to get some of these guys jobs.
You don't know what the f***ing leading man does, all right? He comes in and f***ing knocks it out.
Sam Raimi told me not to hire you.
F***ing Sam loves me. Loves my shit. Dog speech, it'd be all over f***ing Spider-Man.
Who's Sam Raimi?
Yeah, who's Sam Raimi? Good luck with your f***ing monologue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I recommend checking out the bonus features on the DVD. So, Tiny, what next?
Up next, 2008's Sex Drive. This will probably be our last one. This genre is deep. There's a lot. It's a deep well you can draw from. We could definitely do a second episode about it. So there's tons of more movies we can mention, but I think 2008's Sex Drive is a really good example of the whole. I mean, it's called Sex Drive,
Right.
And it's clearly in pursuit of the whole sexual coming of age and need to lose my virginity kind of dynamic thing that's very popular in this genre. And, you know, in 2008, that equation or that concept is pretty played out, and you've seen it tons of times from movies and TV shows. But for whatever reason, I'm honestly not sure what the reason is. I really like this movie, and I think part of it is like the road trip aspect. So you've got that dynamic playing into it as well. You've got, you've got the whole, I think really what makes this a unique movie is the whole Amish thing.
Yeah.
Seth Green and his deadpan, like dry humor is like top notch. He's so funny in this movie. And just that, the starkness of the Amish lifestyle meshed with the concept of this kid making a road trip to go get laid is just such a funny contrast, and just that paradigm is like perfect. And I think that's what made this movie work so well. And I think the filmmakers, there's a version of the movie, if you get the DVD, there's a version of the movie you can watch where they just have like naked people spliced in that have nothing to do with the movie whatsoever, and it's just an attempt to be overly raunchy, and it's like above tongue in cheek. It's blatant, hitting you over the head with it, and it, for whatever reason, it works. It's actually pretty funny, and so obviously the filmmakers were making this and writing this movie from a perspective of, we're going to be ridiculously over the top, and it just worked.
Totally. Where do you live? You want to party? Those two guys were so freaking funny to me.
Yes.
And the whole movie, I really love it. I really do. And it's one of those movies that kind of seemed like this under the radar kind of raunchy comedy that didn't really get that much notice. Like similar to like Eurotrip, it kind of feels like this kind of pseudo American Pie-esque movie that didn't really get the audience that it wanted, or didn't get near the audience that American Pie received. I don't even know if it had a big theater presence, or if it even hit theaters for very long or at all. But I love the movie a lot, for a lot of the same reasons you did, Tiny. I mean, it's got the road trip aspect as well, and it has this endearing, like, girl next door kind of like motif through like the main character not realizing that the girl, like his friend is like the girl of his dreams and all that, and he's chasing this girl across the country just to get laid when the real girl is right in front of him.
Right.
But it's an endearing depiction because they have good chemistry, and it's a good back and forth and everything throughout the movie. I don't really know what else to say about it, and I think that the DVD, the unrated DVD, I never watched that version of it because I feel like it's kind of a little distracting.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, but I feel like it kind of is a nice send up of the unrated director's cut edition releases, because it's just purposely adding. So it's like weird because it's it kind of satirizes or subverts that kind of home theater or home video kind of market, because it's not just like, oh, random boobs popping in, but it's like alternate takes. Like,
yeah,
it's so weird. Some of it doesn't really fit that well, or is
some
kind
of it
awkward.
doesn't. But some of it's classic, like the one where Clark Duke is caught in the act of having sex with a woman, and he's handcuffed to a headboard of a bed, and he ends up detaching the headboard from the bed because he can't get the handcuffs off, and he's just running naked through a cornfield with the headboard, and it's like an old steel headboard,
right?
And there's a part in the unrated version where they just splice in a guy, and it's because it's Clark Duke, and he's a pasty white dude, and they splice it in where it's a black man with a very large penis carrying the headboard, and
I didn't even remember
they
that.
just splice it in, and I laughed so hard at that. I thought it was really funny.
Nice.
So there's some of that stuff, but I agree. There is some. Sometimes it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
I loved Amanda Crew in this.
Oh, she was so charming.
So charming and charismatic and
so great.
Adorable as hell. Yeah, she was great.
Yeah, and she's kind of like, she represents this kind of idealistic like view of a woman for this particular the movie that these the audience that these types of movies are kind of catering toward, like the kind of younger guy model, because she's like this super cool laid back girl that you want to be friends with, but also stuff.
Right.
But
we know.
Yeah. Anyway, no, it's just really great. I love it, and I love the movie.
Yep.
I don't really have much else to say about it, really.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep.
I think that's our list.
I think it is, and I want to throw out just a really quick one. We mentioned we didn't have any 90s movies.
Yeah.
Per se, and I completely forgot about a movie called Trojan War. Did you ever see that movie?
Did not.
It is from 1997. It has the acclaim of being one of the biggest box office disasters ever.
Wow.
I believe I may have talked about this on the podcast before, but
I think you have.
Yeah, but the movie cost $15 million to make.
Okay. Do
you want to take a guess how much it made in its theatrical run?
$800,000.
$800,000? $309.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
$309.
That's appalling.
Absolutely just terrible returns. But and it's wow, holy crap, it's PG-13.
Oh wow.
I had no idea. Anyway, it's from 1997. It stars Will Friedle.
I don't know.
From Boy Meets World, and Jennifer Love Hewitt. And it's just, I'll just go ahead and read the plot description for brevity's sake. Brad is about to hook up with the girl of his dreams, but runs into one problem: no condom. So Brad sets out into the night to find one, running into many obstacles along the way, while not knowing his best friend Leah is in love with him.
I remember you talking about this.
I was such a fan of this movie. This was one of those movies that, Tiny, if you remember, I think either Marsh or Kroger had like a video rental section back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah, like I found it, and like I think I had my mom rent it for me. And like I watched it, and it was really good. It's like I don't know, I don't know how well it holds up, but it's just it's got everything. It's got everything that I love about a good comedy. It's got Jennifer Love Hewitt in the 1990s.
Yes.
It's got it's a one night movie that I'm very attached to. It's got its share of raunch and it's sex comedy and a bunch of stuff. It's a really well packaged movie, and I really like it. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's available to stream anywhere or anything, but it's called Trojan War. I kind of want to throw that on at the throw that out into the end of this segment. And I also want to, Tiny, do you have any movies that off the top of your head that are raunchy comedies that just did not work for you at all?
Not off the top of my head, but I know there's tons out there. And And we didn't do a poll this week like we usually do on the Facebook group page.
Right. I did not have time to post that.
Yeah, I mean, well, our listeners write us now, send us a tweet now
Definitely.
Or an email, Facebook message, whatever. Let us know.
Hashtag Pearl Clutchers.
Yes. Let us know if there's stuff that you love that we left off the list, because I'm sure there is.
Absolutely. And guys, Trojan War available to rent on Google Play for $2.99.
Hey.
Do yourself a favor and watch it. It's really good.
I might.
Please do.
Cool.
And then also last thing, I do have two movies that did not work for me. I didn't add those in.
Okay.
The Raunchy Comedies that did not work for me. I've talked about this before this year on the podcast even, but Dirty Grandpa was terrible. Just really terrible. And then also, the to-do list. I think I mentioned it a couple years ago on the podcast, Aubrey Plaza vehicle where she, wants to kind of, experience every sexual act she can think of before she goes to college.
Yeah.
Wasn't that good. I just didn't like it, so.
I liked it a little bit, yeah. It was okay. It was okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so that does it for this week's topic. Once again, like Tiny said, please email us or tweet us or post on Facebook your favorite raunchy comedies and why. And let's see. So we're going to go ahead and move on to Potpourri. But before we do that, Tiny's going to go to the bathroom, and I'm going to play a promo for Shocktober in Irvington, which again is October 14th at the Irving Theater here in Indianapolis. And check it out and buy tickets online now at shocktoberinirvington.com.
Tickets are on sale now for the 3rd annual Shocktober in Irvington, presented by the Obsessive Viewer podcast. Join the hosts of the Obsessive Viewer on October 14th, 2016 at the Irving Theater for a one-night event screening of short horror films, including the premiere screenings of J.P. Lex The Roman, the latest entry in his cross-mediumed Elsewhere World universe, as well as the latest slasher from Snapshot Productions and Billy and Brandon Watch Movies. All of this and so much more. Come celebrate the horror genre in the historic Irvington area and get a chance to meet the filmmakers with live interviews after each screening. You can also win DVDs, Blu-rays, and gift cards to Irvington businesses. Tickets are on sale now at shocktoberinirvington.com. All proceeds will go directly to the Irvington Historical Society. And we will see you at the Irving Theater on October 14th. That is, if you dare.
Okay, so I think we're going to do a quick Potpourri section this time.
Yep.
So for those first-time listeners, Potpourri is a section of the podcast where we talk about whatever we want, anything that we've watched, anything that we're looking forward to, anything we want, as long as it smells good. Kind of wind down the podcast with it. Tiny, do you mind if I go first?
Go for it.
All right, so I haven't had time to watch much of anything lately, except for things that I watched for my podcast. For these podcasts, I should say. That's not, anyway. Recently, I've been watching a lot of stuff for my solo project podcast Anthology, which is a podcast exploring science fiction anthology storytelling during television's first golden age, beginning with the Twilight Zone. So usually I like to keep OV Potpourri separate from the stuff I watch for Anthology, but this week I'm kind of up against a wall because I don't have anything else to bring up. But anyway, I recently started rewatching Black Mirror, which like 2 years ago or about a year and a half ago, I lauded this show with praise on the podcast like week after week. And so for Anthology, like what I usually do on Anthology is I review an episode of The Twilight Zone along with a related movie or show, sci-fi movie or show related to the week's episode. But what I'm doing now is I'm kind of doubling up and doing double duty, and I'm releasing bonus episodes of Anthology, basically reviewing each episode of Black Mirror. So that has given me the opportunity to rewatch Black Mirror, and I've watched the first season, the first 3 episodes, and I mean, it's like I'm just falling in love with this show all over again. It's amazing because it's a unique and interesting situation, because last year in 2015 when I first saw it, I really latched on to a lot of the things and a lot of the concepts in it. And one of the best episodes of the entire series run is this episode 15 Million Merits. And I spoke very highly about it. And Tiny, I remember at one point you mentioned that you saw it. I think we had a conversation about it. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast or not, but I remember you not being that enthused by it. Do you remember correctly?
For whatever reason, yeah.
Okay. It's funny because I remember that, and like at the time it had been a few months since I'd watched it, and I remember one of your concerns was that it didn't seem to have a lot of you wanted more information about the world, about the universe and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But when rewatching it for Anthology, like I honestly think it's one of the best like written things I've seen. Like for the amount of runtime, they build up like everything about this universe so well for my tastes. And it's so beautiful. And the way that the central romance or the central relationship between the two characters, is established and built up. And then ultimately, things happen. It's so incredible because there are so many, it's like every single thing in the episode is setting up to something different. It's like, there's a woman who hits on the main character because she sees that he has a lot of merits, a lot of credits. They live in this dystopian society. And so this woman sees that he has 15 million merits. So she is instinctively hitting on him, because he can provide for her with a lot of just useless stuff. But he's not into it. And like she shows him a trick to get food out of the vending machine, which is a trick that he in turn uses to charm or break the ice with the female lead. And it's just like that. And then there's this underlying thing that the government is suppressing their emotions and suppressing their feelings. And it's like it's such a dense episode that's filled with it's so rich with so much stuff, and it's heartbreaking and it's incredible. And it's one of the best depictions of a dystopian society I've seen. And it's a 48-minute episode of an anthology science fiction show. And it's like, that's the blip that we get of that universe. And there's so much in it that I was left so satisfied, and I was just so blown away by it. You can listen to my full thoughts on it in bonus episode 2 of Anthology, which is on anthologypod.com. But I really love the show. I can't wait to see what season 3 has in store when it hits Netflix on October 21st. I saw that they premiered the first couple episodes at TIFF, I think, at Toronto International Film Festival, and they got some pretty good reviews. I didn't read them or anything because I'm staying in the dark, but I'm just so excited for it. I'm super pumped. Although I should say, those episodes release October 21st. That's a Friday, and then the next week is Heartland Film Festival. And I also got a notice in the mail that that week I may get called for jury duty.
Wow.
Which sucks so much. And it also sucks because it's not like I can take like jury duty time off of work because I already have PTO for Heartland. So,
oh man,
it's a bummer. But anyway, the point is, check out Black Mirror. It's on Netflix. It's such a great show. It's incredible. One of my favorite shows that's out now. And also check out Anthology at anthologypod.com. Tiny, what do you have for Potpourri?
I am bringing up the miniseries from the Discovery Channel, Harley and the Davidsons. This aired over Labor Day. It started Monday, Labor Day, and then aired Tuesday and Wednesday as well, in 2-hour blocks. Obviously, with the title, it's about the beginning of the Harley Davidson brand and the beginning of motorcycles in general, really. The show was I really liked it a lot. I mean, nice. I was predisposed to like it because I enjoy motorcycles a lot. I really want to get one and ride one and own one. I just don't have the funds right now, but I've always been fascinated with motorcycles. And Harley Davidson, you can't mention motorcycles without mentioning Harley Davidson. They're just intrinsically linked in that respect. And this was a really, great miniseries because I think a lot of people don't understand how rocky the start was for Harley Davidson and motorcycling in general. And what's really great about this story is it starts with literally William Harley and the other members of the Davidson family, Arthur Davidson and Walter Davidson, building the first bike in their shed all the way till they create the first Knucklehead, which is one of the iconic V-twin engines that Harley Davidson is famous for. Mm-hmm. It was their most successful model that they designed in the 30s. And that's when Harley Davidson just took off and became an unstoppable brand. So it really just follows the genesis of the brand into the iconic brand it's become. And I think that was cool to just start with the genesis and just show us that, because we all know what happened after that. We all know what Harley Davidson is today. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a really good creative choice to just focus on the beginning. The cast was really, really good. Mostly unknowns. The most famous person in the miniseries is Michel Huisman. I think I'm saying his name right. Okay. He's the Dutch actor who's probably most famous for playing Nario de Harris in Game of Thrones.
Okay, which one?
Wait, what?
That role was recast. Is it the recent one?
The more recent guy.
Gotcha.
Yes. He also was in the movie Wild with Reese Witherspoon and The Age of Adeline, World War Z.
Okay.
He's also on the movie the show Treme on HBO. Oh, okay. Was in most of that. So he's been around the block. Orphan Black he was also in. So he's done a lot. He played one of the titular characters, Walter Davidson, kind of one of the older brothers. He's a very kind of almost a loose cannon kind of character. Mm-hmm. He was fantastic in this. I think he's just a great actor. I really like what he does. Another Game of Thrones alum, Robert Aramayo. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name correct. He played the young Ned Stark in the kind of flashback in one episode. That's probably what he's most famous for. He hasn't really done much else. But he was fantastic as he played Bill Harley or William Harley. Mm-hmm. And William Harley was the engineer who designed the engines and the frames and the gas tanks and the forks and all the really awesome parts that have made Harley an icon. And he's kind of the genius behind the engineering, and it was really fascinating to watch his character. And then last, one of the more notable people that started in the series, playing Arthur Davidson, who was kind of like the marketing business genius who really solidified the brand that is Harley Davidson that we know today, is the actor Bug Hall, who is most famous for playing Alfalfa in the Little Rascals remake in the 90s. Really? Yeah. Huh. He's had a busy career, but it's all like B movie stuff. Oh, yeah. I mean, he's done his fair share of television as well, but he was in the movie Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he's been in some other he was in The Big Green, which I loved that movie when I was a kid. So yeah, he had a fun childhood acting career. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad he's made the transition because he was very good in this movie. He played kind of the standard or the token character who's like super, super ambitious, will like do anything to be successful. But he's also just a really brilliant businessman. This was just a really cool movie. I think I love the kind of freedom that's associated and the kind of like, devil may care attitude that's associated with motorcycling. It's so different from Cars because cars are bound by roads for the most part, but like a motorcycle, you can just bob and weave between the traffic, and it has this whole other persona about it. And the Bill Harley and the Davidson family were absolutely, backers of those notions, and that's what they loved about motorcycles, and that really plays through in the first the beginning story of Harley Davidson, if you will. I just really appreciated what they did with this series. I think it was fun.
Nice. I honestly kind of just assumed that it was a documentary.
Oh, really? No.
To be honest, yeah.
Nope, it is
really
a straight dramatization.
Nice.
I think that was a good choice too.
Oh yeah.
I think unfortunately this miniseries was not on many people's radar.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's on the Discovery Channel, and they're not known for their dramatizations. They're known for their documentary stuff. So
right.
Yeah, that's what they're known for, and it's kind of out of turn for them to do something like this. But they've been making some pushes to do stuff like this, like they did that series with the guy who played Rob Stark about
about
the gold rush in Alaska.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it.
I don't remember what it was called. I never saw it, unfortunately, but I heard it was good.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool that Discovery is, they're known for their history and their documentary stuff, and they're taking real things and turning them into fun series and focusing on all the good stuff. I think it's cool. It's
nice that we actually have like a history channel in Discovery.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was really cool. Yeah, I think people will like it. I don't know if there's anywhere you can really see it. Probably on the Discovery website, you might be able to check it out.
Nice.
Or I think the Discovery usually has DVDs, so I recommend it. I really enjoyed it.
Nice. And let's see, that show. That show was called Klondike.
Klondike, thank you.
Which is, I mean, I don't know if it was supposed to be a miniseries or if it was originally supposed to be like a series and just got canceled or something. But I mean, just that, the title Klondike does not make you think, I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems kind of silly. But anyway, so yeah, I don't have any more for Potpourri, so I think that about does it for this week's episode.
Yep.
So thank you guys for listening. Once again, tickets to Shocktober in Irvington are on sale at shocktoberInIrvington.com. You can get $1 off the price of admission, for if you use the promo code podcast1 at checkout. And if you can't make it to Shocktober in Irvington and still want to donate money to the Irvington Historical Society, there is an option to donate on shocktoberInIrvington.com for that cause, because it's a really good organization, really good community, and really great. So next week, Tiny, do you know what we're doing?
No.
I'll go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
I think next week we're going to try to review Snowden, the new Oliver Stone movie.
Absolutely.
About Snowden. And then we may also try to squeeze in a bonus episode reviewing Netflix's original series Stranger Things.
Yes.
Because I finally watched it weeks and weeks after everyone else has, so we'll at least be able to get it out there, late, but better late than never. So anyway, having said all that, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Okay, so just real quick, can you just see how pretty she is?
Yeah.
She's such a pretty little pizza princess. She's so pretty, my pretty little pizza.
Dear God.
Sweetie.
Yes, she is.
She is. Oh my God, look at her. She was so scared because the power was out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if she was or not. I don't speak cat.
You don't?
And not yet.
Right, pizza? He doesn't.
Right. Yeah. Anyway. And that's going to be the tag, and everyone's going to judge me for it. I don't care.
Yes, they should.
I love my cat, everyone. Anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at ObsessiveViewer.com, or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@ObsessiveViewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at ObsessiveViewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer and follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer, at ObsessiveTiny, and at IamMikeWhite. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, ObsessiveBookNerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.